Hey everyone, welcome to the third Learn live stream. I'm your host for today. I'm Sabrina, and today's session will be on Bitcoin runes, decrypting the next era of Bitcoin. The live stream is available on both the Bybit app and Bybit web, but for the best interactive experience, do join us on Bybit web, where you can throw in your questions and share your insights with us live. Now, I'm very excited to share that we'll be exploring the revolutionary world of Bitcoin runes with some of the brightest minds in this space. Before I introduce them, just a show of hands. Who loves giveaways? Because I know I do. And I just wanted to shout out that we have an ongoing pop quiz where you can answer the questions and earn a share of the 100,000 BOME prize pool. Just scroll down and answer the questions quickly and correctly, and you might be able to walk away with a share of the 100,000 BOME prize pool. Do note that it's limited to the first 100 winners, so fastest fingers first. And of course, if you like to show your love for the Bitcoin Runes live stream, please like this video. You can spam the like button, and more importantly, share this live stream out with your family, your friends, your crypto community. Anyone can join in on the fun that's happening today. Okay, and of course, participate in the pop quiz and earn a share of the 100,000 BOME prize pool. Now, let's turn the spotlight to our esteemed panelists. First up, we have the marketing lead of Uncharted, V. Hi, V.
Hey, nice to meet you, GM. I'm V.
Today, could you please give us a short introduction?
Yeah, sure. Many people in the space know me as Valer Yoshi, and I got into crypto via Silk Road. I won't tell you guys what I was buying, but yeah, that's how I got orange pilled, and then I fell out for a bit, and I got back into it in December 2013 thanks to 4chan. A bunch of 4chaners recommended buying Doge, and yeah, that's how I got into Doge and Bitcoin as investments. Then I started building ETH mining rigs, and I ended up accumulating a small farm, which was fun for a while until proof of staking came out. And I really, really got into JPEGs in a really unhealthy way. Yeah, probably too too much. I love JPEGs too much. And then I led a community-run fundraiser for DGods to burn a CryptoPunk, and we did that. And after that, I was elected fourth president of X Plus DGods, which is an exclusive club for members who hold 10 or more DGods. Shout out to DGods, DGods on top.
Thanks, thanks, V. What do you think about the current meme coin trend?
So I do think the current meme coin trends are interesting. A few of these meme coins, I believe, have lasting power and impact in the landscape. In fact, most meme coins that are launched are forgotten fairly quickly, but some do have an impact. We can just, look no further than Motai, right? But also look at Retardio and Pups, which are based off actual projects, the latter being Bitcoin puppets. Then there are actual projects like Jupiter and Wen and even Monad Layer 2, which are utilizing the power of memes to amplify their branding and marketing.
Yeah, definitely. It's fascinating to see how meme coins like those you have mentioned are shaping the landscape. And I'm eager to find out how Bitcoin runes might add to this narrative. So thanks, V, for sharing. Next up, we have Shash, the founder and CEO of Altcoin Buzz. Hi, Shash. It's great to have you here. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sabrina. Yeah, I come from a less tech side compared to we. I got into the space 2015, just trying to figure out what's happening here. Not coming from a technology, which is crypto and finance, which is currency background. For me, this space was new from all facets. But like in 2015, I was looking at various things happening in the space, whether it's like not in this space, but in general, like there were a lot of fringe spaces coming up, which was like AR, VR, 3D printing, cryptocurrency. And then there was this thing called demonetization that happened in India, where they said, hey, the money that you have isn't really money. And I was like, well, what are people working for if this can happen? And then started looking more deeply into the space, uh, more specifically Bitcoin, and then following everything that was happening here, connecting with various people. I realized that it's super fascinating, and if I want to be on top of things, I need to keep myself updated. And to do that, what's better than to kind of do the research and put it out there? So started Altcoin Buzz, which was like something I thought I will do till I figure out what to do in this space and get a job, but I'm still doing the same. I still don't have a job. It's been 8 years almost now. So yeah, that's been my journey. And with Altcoin Buzz, we have like content we create on the website as well as the YouTube channel. And it's like a bunch of people. We work in a very decentralized manner. Everybody's opinion matters. Everybody's sort of, we have a team of 40 plus people. So everybody has their own set of coins they like, dislike. There are many things that I'm not for, but the team likes it. It is what it is. So yeah, so that's like what we've been doing. And if you guys can follow us, that would be great. We've been working very hard to create easy to understand content on crypto.
Yeah, thanks, Shash, for actually sharing more about your crypto journey. I think you're definitely playing your part in getting more people interested in the crypto space. And yeah, we're very excited to hear what you think sets Bitcoin runes apart from the crowd.
Yeah, I think the Taproot upgrade has been in the works for a really long time. I think assets on Bitcoin are like jewelry as a use case on Bitcoin being gold, as a store of value. So while these jewelries, can be mined as, and also like there are gems along with Bitcoin on the same blockchain, some of these gems will be like rocks, wasting mining energy and block space. It is the nature of the space. I think runes are super fascinating and might have a lot of interesting ideas and use cases over time. I think it's too early in the day, and this is what I love about the space is that we are so early in seeing these development and things happening. So we can follow where true value is moving. I think money moves faster. People's interest wanes really quickly as well. And we've seen this over and over and again in various tech developments, industries, as well as like tokenization ideas that have happened in this space. So I kind of feel like further in this discussion, we'll discuss some of the things that might be more meaningful and some things that might may not hold value, but it's definitely something which is interesting. And then, till then we continue the meme culture of speculation by degening over the most valuable blockchain in the world.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I can already feel that this is going to be a very insightful discussion. And I'm so thrilled to have you guys here with me to talk about one of the latest crypto trends right now, which is Bitcoin runes. All right, let's just take a look at the chat box. I see that there are quite a number of people who are very excited for our live stream. For example, Nana1 says she's very excited for runes. And there are some people who have also shared the live stream. Okay, guys, if you have not shared this live stream, please do share it with your crypto community, your family, your friends. Everyone can join in on the fun today. And someone actually called Risk Management asked, V, what is your sheet? Is it Pepe? V?
Yes, it is Pepe. I'm a massive fan of Pepe art. So is my mom. My mom's almost 70 years old, and she collects Pepe art like crazy too. So yeah, big Pepe family.
Yeah, I can see the blanket behind you. Is that Pepe as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. Yeah, you also can't see it, but like above my TV, there's a line of Pepe art as well.
Well, definitely a big fan. All right, thanks for sharing. Okay, and yeah, for those of you guys who are just tuning in, we're just sharing that we do have an ongoing pop quiz where you can answer the questions quickly and correctly to earn a share of the 100,000 BOME prize pool. Don't forget to like this video as well. You can spam the like button. Actually, it's quite fun. It's a new feature that we have, so go ahead and try it, and of course share this live stream out so that more people can join in today. And yeah, with that, let's just kickstart this live stream session. So today we're diving into something that's capturing the attention of a lot of people in the crypto space, Bitcoin runes. Launched right alongside the recent Bitcoin halving, an event that cuts the reward for mining Bitcoin in half, Bitcoin runes have arrived at a pivotal moment. But the big question is, why should you care? Now, the imagine adding a new layer of versatility to Bitcoin, almost like a new set of features for an old favorite app. It's exciting because it opens up fresh possibilities. It's not just tech enthusiasts who are excited. This is a shift that could change how we all view Bitcoin's potential. So let's get a clearer picture. V, can you explain to us, like we're 5-year-olds, what Bitcoin runes are and why they're making waves in the Bitcoin ecosystem?
All right. So real directly and basically, Bitcoin runes bring shitcoins to Bitcoin. It utilizes the UTXO model, which is basically how Bitcoin processes transactions. It sends the entire amount out, and then it gets bit back. And it uses this combined with the op return output to insert. So every transaction has a bit of space that's not used, and it uses that space to insert arbitrary data in there so that it doesn't cause actual chain bloating. That's why it's superior to token standards like BRC20, which uses the ordinal protocol. The ordinal protocol was never intended for tokens. So both are by Casey Rodarmer, by the way, who is our Satoshi for us Bitcoin art vandals. So real quick, what I think is exciting about Bitcoin runes, like outside of them just being runes, is the fact that Bitcoin runes are one sign of all the innovation that's happening on Bitcoin at the moment. So it shows, just like it scratches the surface for what's coming and what is going to become possible in the near future. So if you want to, you can, coming back to runes real quick, you can etch, which means to create, or you can mint a rune, right? It's super simple and easy to understand, and it causes no chain bloat. So I think that is amazing. And shitcoins on Bitcoin is like bringing shitcoins to the mother chain, right? So it won't affect the chain's functionality, and the design is super simple yet ingenious. I don't know if I want to get a bit too technical, but I guess I can't. Like, I run a Bitcoin node, and I know a lot of people got into running Bitcoin nodes because of the Runes protocol launch. Uh, a Bitcoin node can help decentralize the network because they're basically just small computers that load all the blockchain data and make sure it's all in sync. So if there's like someone attacks the blockchain, there's always another node to help back up all the data, right? But on like a user level, why would you want to run a Bitcoin node for personal selfish interests? Well, you can front run. For example, you can mint a rune before anyone else. If other users are using a website, you can basically circumvent that and get the rune straight from the faucet. And that's how you can also circumvent paying platform fees, which can be quite costly. So if you want to help secure the Bitcoin network while also taking advantage of some of the functionalities that nodes have to offer, I think it's an affordable device that can actually help you learn more about Bitcoin, especially the technical side. Umbrel is a fantastic node seller, and I don't have any sponsorships or affiliation with them. I actually really like their product. So, and I think more people should be using Umbrel nodes. They make running a node super easy and simple. So yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
Thanks, V, for breaking that down. So is that also how you got into, like how you got to learn more about the technical side of Bitcoin by?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite old. I'm older than I look, so I'm actually like quite familiar with terminals and DOS commands from like before Windows came out. So yeah, it
Okay.
also has a nostalgia factor for me.
Okay, all right. Thanks for sharing. So it seems that Bitcoin runes not only innovate, but also simplify the creation of tokens on the Bitcoin blockchain. So everyone on the market has been talking about how good Bitcoin runes are, but let's take a different approach. Let's try something new. So all innovations tend to come with their set of challenges. So, panelists, what are some of the challenges that Bitcoin runes face? For example, some people have expressed concern over runes transactions clogging up the network. They're concerned about its impact on Bitcoin's block space and whether it will provide sustainable revenue for miners. What do you guys think about that? Maybe Shash, would you like to share?
Yeah. Uh, Miners are very strong in their belief system, right? So miners usually don't go around complaining that much. Like they're a very stable bunch of people who know what they're getting into before they spend whatever amount they spend to buy equipment and then keep running the network. They're not the ones we should be super concerned about most of the time, right? But adding more miners and making sure that the network stays decentralized is very important. Like in the latest news, we kind of learned that a majority of the Bitcoin network is pretty much run by like two mining pools, which is quite, not decentralized in a way. And that's what we're going for. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. And if there is more mining fees that is being generated, yes, it allows for the miners to be able to sell Bitcoin if they have to at a lower price because they're earning enough through these use of unspent transactions, which is the UTXO we spoke about before. But we have to also remember that from a mining perspective, like we have just about 6+% of Bitcoin supply that will come out in the next 10 years, right? And then we have 1% from that to the next 100 years sort of left to come out. So that doesn't affect us from a supply perspective, from a user perspective. And the miners isn't something that I don't think I'm at a pay grade I can worry too much about. Like the miners have them pretty much sorted out. And the ones that can afford being in this space are there. And there are more people, more money that's trying to get into this space. Like El Salvador is mining, new countries are mining, people are opening up to this idea. And since the approval of ETF, people have realized there are so many things that they can do into this ecosystem, right? So uh, I think runes help by generating transaction fees on the UTXO, but they also congest the network sometimes. And I can't argue with that. It is what it is. And the other issue is that fees for degen trading on Bitcoin is pretty high and slow. So it needs to get scaled to like a layer two or a centralized system. In that case, like, wouldn't it be better to use ETH or Sol? I don't know these answers. I think we will find out, and later on we can speculate on what would happen here as well. But that's what I have for you.
Definitely, I think it's still too early to really understand. So yeah, like you said, we'll find out. V, maybe do you have anything you want to share about this?
Yeah, yeah. I actually think it does provide a sustainable revenue. Well, maybe not sustainable, but it provides significant incentives for miners. We need to look no further than the ordinal data, right? Like ordinals pumped Bitcoin like crazy and generated tons of interest. And speaking of like, high fees and the chain becoming too bloated sometimes at times, like I was there. I was minting runes like five minutes after it launched. Right, the protocol. I think I spent like $3,000 minting like 61 runes, which was a terrible waste of money because like the fees were insane. But like it showed me that the demand is there for chain bloat to occur, and I don't think they're going away. I remember when ordinals first launched, it really didn't have as much demand as it did a few months later when the ordinal maxi biz green eyes mint happened on Bitcoin, and that is what caused a surge in ordinals, and then came the liquidity crunch after. So I think we'll have these periods where it's up and down, but if runes are going to be like ordinals in any way, I think they will be around for a long time.
All right, thanks, V. Okay, and let's move on. So, do you think that we seem to be straying further away from Bitcoin's original purpose as a peer to peer electronic cash system envisioned by Satoshi Nakamoto? Or is this the next parabolic case study when zooming out on a mid to longer term time frame?
Yeah,
Shash?
I think. Sorry, I
Yeah,
think I
Shash.
think we have to, if we have to discuss the terminology, then majority won't even agree with the fact that Bitcoin is a cash system, right? Like, if you were to launch a stable coin on runes on the Bitcoin blockchain, it would be closer to the term peer-to-peer electronic cash, because like it's not electronic cash. Like, we've kind of proven this over time, and I think this terminology was broken down very interestingly by Michael Saylor recently during the MicroStrategy conference, where he broke down the part about peer to peer, and he spoke about the fact that peer to peer could be like the Bank of Japan talking to their peers in the Bank of America and stuff like that. So I think from that perspective, you can't give people something which is immutable and then mute people to use it differently. I think that kind of goes against the principle. Like, the internet was created for communication for military and scientists, and if people who were building that in the 60s worked on it, who worked on it, were shown whatever is been happening on TikTok these days, like, I don't know what they would think about it, right? But your guess is as good as mine. So, like, is the original purpose of Bitcoin getting derailed by launching something like runes, BRC20, taproot assets, etc.? I don't think so. Like, Bitcoin still remains what it is. BTC is as valuable as it is. Can the network be used for multiple things? Yes, why not? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we put ourselves in a position to judge before analyzing and kind of like seeing where things could be headed and giving them a chance to succeed. So I kind of feel that I like what we do is like just observe, stay there and see how things unfold. Listen to everybody's opinion, but like not take action on everything which moves in the space, right? Like, I think the easiest thing you can do is to buy something, and the hardest thing you can do is like analyze it to understand why you would buy it and hold it and keep it even if the value goes down. And I think these are some of the things which are more important to discuss. So yeah, I mean, I think if your question was like, are we going away from the Bitcoin's original purpose? Like, I think we went away from it. like the first line of the white paper. We went away from it a while back. But are we on the same path of what he intended to, what he intended to build? I think we are very much on the right path. And if the world of decentralized money was to be built on Bitcoin, this will be quite interesting to see this blockchain being used. But I think we will discuss this again.
Yeah, thanks, Shash. I definitely agree. V, do you have anything to add?
I do. Yeah, it's the question reminds me kind of like in the medical field, most important discoveries have been incidental, right? They've been accidents. So uh, most of those medications aren't used for their intended purposes. I could give the examples, but I won't. But like coming back to this, it's like Satoshi also envisioned like trading cards on Bitcoin, for example, at one point. And I have to agree with Shash. It's not really about what he envisioned, but what the use case has become. Like, imagine if the creators of the internet came around and said, hey, we never intended for you guys to use the internet for streaming purposes, so you can't do that. We'd be like, what are you talking about, right? So, like, if we look at projects like Quantum Cats by Taproot Wizards as well, their mission is to enable the opcat function in Bitcoin, which Satoshi had originally disabled because he thought it was too risky at the time, right? So now that we know we've stress tested Bitcoin more as a network, we want to see if that's possible. And I think these BIPs are important for us to continue development and see what is possible with the blockchain. I really don't think I don't think Bitcoin was ever intended as a cash system, or even if it was, we have Bitcoin Cash like as a fork because the Bitcoin blockchain wasn't well suited for it, right? So yeah, it's we'll see what happens, but innovators will innovate. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, V. Okay, like I also agree. It's great that Bitcoin has much more use cases now, and that's why we also see wider adoption of Bitcoin. Yeah, thanks for sharing, guys. Okay, and despite these challenges, there are definitely still people who believe that Bitcoin runes are a very positive addition. I'm sure you guys also believe that. But before we dive into the potential opportunities that Bitcoin runes bring, let's take a look at some of the questions that the audience might have. Let's take a look at the chat box. So one of the questions is, how are Bitcoin runes different from Bitcoin? Maybe Shash, would you like to just briefly touch on that first?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bitcoin, the protocol, the blockchain started in 2009, which started this whole vision of separating money from the state, basically. And it was like the answer to the question, like the government job is judiciary and administration. What is its business messing around with the financial system? And you can see more and more how your value is being devalued every day with more incessant money printing happening in the space. So like that's another very long question, but Bitcoin is like the base layer, which started in 2009, which is like enables Bitcoin to be transferred, and it's been a very robust, like single purpose sort of a blockchain, and like it's like hard, right? But now with the latest upgrade that happened on it, which was Taproot, I think it happened 2 years ago, yeah, 2 years ago. It enabled for things like a bit of development to happen on it, where you could use SATs or UTXO for creating tokenized assets. So you can use the Bitcoin blockchain for multiple purposes. One of those standards that have been created on it is runes, which enables you to kind of do these on top of asset transfer. So that means you can, so anybody who's in the audience, like figure out how you can create your own set of runes, make assets, make like 50 of them and give it away to 50 of your friends, and suddenly you have your own asset created early in the days of this particular asset class, that you can give away to your friends and family on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's going to be expensive to do those transfers because you're paying fees on the world's most decentralized and powerful network, but it's going to be very interesting. But Runes is relatively new. It started in like 2024, so it's just launched with the Bitcoin halving, which was also one of the reason why it got so much hype, because like Runes got launched on the same block as the halving took place, which is pretty fascinating. So yeah, like ordinals had already gotten traction, and because it was created by the same guy who created ordinals like in 2023, like it kind of just added on to that whole hype, and now they're getting more traction. I think they've gotten more traction than BRC20 did. I think they're a more efficient system, but we can get into details of that. So runes are definitely a way smaller sort of asset class. I think the runes entire market cap would be like 10 to 15 billion dollars, whereas Bitcoin is sitting at 1.4 trillion dollars right now. So like I don't think there's a comparison between the two, but they are definitely connected in a way, but completely disconnected from a valuation perspective. I don't know if I got that correct, because it's like asking me the difference between apples and sort of like spaghetti.
Thanks, Shash. I think that answers the question. Okay, and Fligo actually asked, can anyone create or use Bitcoin runes? I think Shash, you also answered that, anyone can. Maybe V, do you want to just elaborate on how someone can actually use Bitcoin runes, since you
Yeah,
have experience?
yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to create Bitcoin runes, you can run a node and go into the terminal and etch them, which means to create them yourself. You need to know what you're doing, because if you don't, you could accidentally create cenotaphs, which are runes that are basically defunct, right? So you're basically creating dead runes. So the parameters when you etch a rune is they're very important. But you can also use a service like Luminex.io, allows you to create runes for a fee, and that's what a lot of people have been using, because it's the same with shitcoins on Solana, right? If you want to create shitcoins on Solana, you can either code it or you can just use a tool to create one in like 2 minutes and then launch it. It's just the blocker isn't the technical aspects of how to create a rune, because I think you can figure that out real quick. It's more like creating a rune that has meme and virality potential so that it catches on. So it's the same problem that Solana shitcoins have, essentially. Yeah, but they're on a new technology.
All right, thanks, V. I hope that answers your question, Fligo. Okay, and yeah, just before we move to the next segment, just wanted to give a reminder that we do have a pop quiz where you can answer the questions and earn a share of the 100,000 BOME prize pool. And don't forget to share this live stream as well if you're having fun talking to our panelists. Okay, and so the next segment will be on market impact and current adoption of Bitcoin runes. So, Shash, would you agree that Bitcoin runes provide more efficiency as compared to token standards like BRC20? And if so, in what aspects?
Yeah, definitely it's an upgrade over BRC20. I think I would like to include Taproot Assets by Lightning Labs in this kind of comparison as well. For differences between Runes and BRC20, like Runes was launched in April 2024, which is like just now, as a new fungible token issuance system that uses one transaction per transfer over the Bitcoin network. Whereas it can be compatible with Lightning. I think they're still working on the indexer for that, and that will be a huge advantage, because then you can set up your state channels over the Lightning network to use one for BTC transfer and another for Rune transfer, and you can actually trade over Lightning networks, which will be super fascinating. And that's like, for the first time, I would assume we would see DeFi over Bitcoin, like in the sense it's used for Ethereum, and that'll be super cool if that's possible. A BRC, on the other hand, was launched in March 2023. I think April 2024 wasn't runes. I think, when did the halving take place?
April
Uh,
last month.
April, yeah. So exactly the same time, right? So BRC20 was March 2023. It's kind of named after ERC20 as well. Like ERC20 was like the 20th filing for a standard for token on Ethereum, and sort of using like the term BRC20, though Ethereum people would understand it. It doesn't have the best sort of idea behind it. I wasn't fascinated when it was called BRC20, knowing what is ERC20 and why it is called that, and why is ERC 1155 or 721 called as such. So like I kind of felt that the BRC20 was just a bad name for the token standard. But that said, like that bias being aside, I think it's a slightly less efficient system, and it's definitely not Lightning compatible. They're not working on fixing that as well, though it is an OG sort of like in our world where things move so fast. It's kind of like one of the first tokenization standards, which was not like an Omni protocol, which is launched on Bitcoin, which is directly using the Bitcoin layer. And it has been pretty interesting. There are a lot of movement that happened during that time, a lot of excitement happening. And excitement on Bitcoin is always good. More people talking about it, good, bad, ugly, it's always good. Because as long as the network holds its value and works fine, I think anything else is just cherry on top, good, bad, or ugly, whether it's regulatory side of things or whether it's like asset building side of things. So I think the third and a very interesting sort of development is happening, which is by Lightning Labs, which is Taproot Assets. And it's very similar to runes in many ways, like from a layman's perspective, that's what I understood. But it has a better indexer, and they are doing Lightning integration as a priority, which is very important for me, because I don't like to see, if you're going to trade shit coins, then might as well do it for a much lesser fees, right? Like I think that is something that I think would only get adaption for you know meme coin trading over a new network, because if you're going to use it for junk, might as well use a junk chain, right? Like that's the way kind of my brain works. So I hope that helps you understand what the difference between runes, BRC20, and other these standardizations that are being built on the Bitcoin chain are.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Josh, for breaking it down so clearly and with a very cute analogy as well. Could you elaborate on how Bitcoin runes, benefits the Bitcoin blockchain just a bit further?
Yeah. So Bitcoin works, and it just works, right? Like Bitcoin is fine, and it remains decentralized, it remains immutable. These are properties that people want to leverage on. Like if you're gonna create a decentralized asset, why wouldn't you use the most decentralized and the most immutable network in the world, right? Like every other chain has its own history, which is much more, you know, not as clean as Bitcoin's history, let's say it that way, right? So, as an open source network, if people can build on it and use it for various things, scale it, they will do it. Like it's bound to happen. If people can fork it, they will do it. Like I think no one can destroy Bitcoin, but people can do a lot of things in and around it. And these things will happen. Like I don't think the question should be if it is right or wrong. The question is whether it gets adoption or it doesn't get adoption. Why the hell have I been saying adaption? Like what's wrong with English? But that said, like I think adoption is the key, right? Like I think Ethereum has its adoption for tokenization, etc., which kind of we're seeing a lot more on Solana. Like I was seeing this graph the other day which says that last month like 1 million tokens were created, which was more than created on Ethereum since like 2014 to 2023. Like we're mushrooming into the world of Facebook pages and website. Like I think the best analogy to discuss here is the fact that you know anyways, like that doesn't go into the question, but I'll quickly summarize it as well. But like people couldn't make websites before. Like it wasn't easy, and that's why we had the whole .com bubble, is because anybody who could do it could buy a domain and set up a website. Like was like, hey man, like this is gonna be money, take my money sort of a thing. But now we have 1.9 billion websites in the world, and my Twitter page is not as valuable as google.com. And people have realized how to kind of evaluate these things, which is still not known in the world of uh, altcoins and tokens. Like we still assume things, and the values is given on whatever Bitcoin and Ethereum's price is, and everything else needs to be in a ratio proportion to that, and it's always fluctuating. So like going back to your question, I won't go into that further. Like Bitcoin runes benefit, like the Bitcoin blockchain is, you can have so many more interesting and exciting use cases with the mother chain as well, right? Like, so I think we have to kind of see where this chaos leads us to. Like, it's important to observe, understand, and be curious before we start speculating and assuming. I think that's a problem, is that we assume we understand something which we don't. And
Mm.
it takes a while to kind of understand, because this is a completely new financial system, right?
Mm.
Bitcoin is different from everything that we've seen before. It changes people's perspective of money. Like, how money was 50 years ago was very different than what it was 100 years ago, but this new dynamic shift, which is called Bitcoin, is extremely different. So assuming that we know anything about how it will shape the future of finance, including runes benefiting Bitcoin or not, I think it's a lot to do with observation, and I think it's too early to kind of make a judgment on it. So I hope it helps, because people are working on it, time, energy is being spent on it, but we will see.
Yeah, definitely, Shash. We do have any comments for this?
Yeah, I think Shash is taking a more cautious approach. I'm definitely more more of a bull. If I see a rune that captures my attention, I'll throw some cash at it and see what happens. Um,
Yeah, Sabrina, go make a rune. Give give it to me.
We'll do
I'll be your
it.
exit liquidity. Also, yeah, worth mentioning, BRC20s were never. So Domo came up with BRC20s, and yeah, the ordinal protocol for which it operates under was never intended for tokenization, right? So if you ever bought or dealt with BRC20s, you will find out very quickly that it's so difficult to sell it, right? You have to basically batch it in a separate inscription, and then you have to list it in the batch that you think it will sell, and it's a pain. Yeah, compared to runes, which are already like, you can just send however amount of runes you want, or it's much more flexible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely much simpler. I mean, it's a huge improvement from BRC20, right? I think that's also why many people are paying more attention to Bitcoin runes over ordinals. And yeah, so many of us here are still relatively new in terms of exposure to Bitcoin runes. Could you walk us through potential opportunities to cut through the noise, given that new narratives are formed every day?
Yeah, so we don't have to overcomplicate things. I think when there's a new tech out, it tends to intimidate people, and there's also like they're just not marketed properly, I think. But runes have been getting a lot of attention. I think ordinals are definitely here to stay. So I don't agree when people say ordinals are a fad or a trend, or runes are a trend right now or trending right now. I think it's just a downtime and they'll all resurge. But yeah, anyway, so runes are basically introducing a new token standard on top of Bitcoin, right? So one thing that's awesome is that we can use Bitcoin to purchase runes and sell runes. We can't. So we like. I think that's a massive advantage that we can. That Bitcoin BTC is the token we can use, and it's an additional way that we can have fun on the chain and experiment with different airdrops or payment systems and stuff like that, right? So right now we have two things we can pay attention to. We can pay attention to pre-runes and runes. So pre-runes are basically rune miners that were airdropped to holders of certain communities or projects. And they're basically JPEGs with counters, right? And they tell you how many runes will be airdropped to this wallet once the Rune protocol launches. It launched on April 20th. On a side note, April 20th is a very important date for crypto folks. It's also the national holiday or the international holiday for weed smokers. So yeah, very special holiday for people like us. So yeah, an example would be of a pre-rune miner is RSIC Meta Protocol. It's the very first pre-rune miner that launched, and it was dropped everywhere. They gamified the drop system, so a lot of people didn't think it was a fair airdrop. Mainly people who didn't receive it had a lot of complaints. Based on that, Leonidas, who is the dev behind Ord.io and a central figure in Bitcoin, he launched runestones, and runestones were basically supposed to be fair drop in response to RSIC, right? So anyone who had minimum of 3 transactions within the past year that were JPEG related qualified for the drop. And when those dropped, so on April 20th, a few days after, I think, Leonidas etched it's in the top 10. So it's called Dog to the Moon or something like that. It's so it's a dog coin. It's a dog rune. It's the first dog rune on on Bitcoin. And yeah, it's interesting, but there's also like rune pups, which is also pre-rune, but it's not a timer. It's actually just a representation of a specific allocation for each holder. So if you have 5 rune pups, you get X based on how many you hold, right? So so the opportunities, I feel like there are many opportunities, and at the end of the day, you just need to pick some. I don't want to give financial advice, of course, but I would say if you believe in provenance, like the early ordinals, or you like rare sats and you know the value of like early sats or historical sats, then you will definitely pay attention to the top 10 runes that came out. My personal favorites are still RSIC Meta Protocol as well as Dog, because I don't know which one's going to win, obviously, and in conditions of uncertainty, you have to hedge your bets, right? So yeah, those two are my big rune bets.
Why will they win though? Like,
Sorry?
why will any of them win?
Why would any of them win?
No, win. Like you said, right?
Win?
You don't know which one will win. So I'm just asking, like, why would any of them win?
Okay. So I do believe in. I guess I'm bullish on runes in general because I minted my very first ordinal in March, right? So I was very early last year,
Right.
and then people were saying, "Oh, ordinals are dead," and then we experienced a resurgence, and it was a very hard resurgence. So I feel like the same thing is happening with runes, where it dies down. I know, like, people say history rhymes, or like this time it's not the same. I get those concerns, but at the same time, I get that runes aren't ordinals, and it is a high risk play at the time. But like, we're early, and I look at the runes market cap versus the Bitcoin market cap, as well as the market cap of shitcoins on Solana, for example, and I go, I mean, we're either going to the moon or we're going to zero, right? So yeah, I guess
Can you do non-fungibles on Rune as well?
non-fungible. No, you can't. Not at the. Well, technically you could.
You should do one.
Yeah, technically you could. Casey was talking about it on one of his podcast episodes. Technically you could, and then you could build. You could etch runes on top of that non-fungible rune, so it could stack endlessly, basically.
Yeah, but then you can't index them collectively. Like if it's part of a collection, then it becomes complicated. I get it.
Yeah.
So I think we can have another longer discussion on some of these things. It's quite interesting though. I kind of feel that, what we're seeing with GameStop right now, it's fascinating because it's literally, people versus the Wall Street, or with some of the ideas we have, it's like people versus the government, or we have people versus the banks, right? Like I think in the whole crypto space and in the whole finance world, it's like either the government's manipulating the the macro financial system, or the banks sort of messing up with people's privacy and like independence and stuff, or it's the Wall Street sort of manipulating the money that people want to invest in. And kind of like everything which is happening is kind of, people are getting more aware, more kind of understanding of what's going on, right? So I kind of feel that with runes, like it is that liberal sort of mindset, it is that freedom that people have. But sort of like, I think where we go excited with the whole community side of things, I think we kind of lose the meaning and why we're doing it to a certain degree somehow. And that leads to eventual questioning. When the value goes down is when people ask, like, why did I buy this? Like, I think people should be asking that question before they buy it, right? I think, but that said, like, I think there's a lot that's happening on runes, but I think we're kind of low on time. So I'm going to pass it to Sabrina to take over.
Thank you guys for the insightful discussion. Yeah, we can definitely have a more in-depth discussion on that in future, probably. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Shash, now that we've seen major milestones such as the recent halving event, the Bitcoin spot ETF approval, rise of Bitcoin layer twos, Bitcoin reaching 1 billion transactions, would you say that the market's reaction to Bitcoin runes is already priced in?
Yeah, it's hard to say about Bitcoin and what is priced in. No, I don't even think ETF is priced in. If you ask me, like, I think Bitcoin's undervalued even at $500,000 right now. So, like, I'm a bad guy to sort of think about the pricing side of things and whether runes is priced in or not. I think with the amount of the, I think both ways can be argued. Like, the number of people in the world that actually have Bitcoin yet, it could be sort of overpriced. Nobody, like, if 95% of the world has no Bitcoin in their wallets, have no like exposure to Bitcoin, then a $60,000 asset could be a little more on the expensive side for them as well, right? Like, from a psychology perspective, like, I'm not going to buy a Bitcoin. It's like 60,000 bucks, right? Like, people don't realize it's sort of like divisible, and things like it's a lot more than that, and the world is getting it. But for somebody like me who kind of comes from a place which is really imploding with a lot of inflation and having a lot of issues with finance in general, like, once I understand what Bitcoin is, this is what we value things in, right? One BTC is one BTC. But sort of like, I think runes launch at a really good time. I think this halving was significant. It happened after the launch of the ETF, after companies and institutions have started acquiring Bitcoin, after there's a lot more intelligent content which is easy for people to understand on Bitcoin. Like, when I think I started, it was super tough. We were just following whatever Andreas Antonopoulos said. I think when we must have started, he would be like reading Reddit posts and all. There would be nothing on YouTube at that point of time. Um, and like, yeah, like, kind of now it's a much different state, and I think the world situation is much easier to understand. So that said, like, the runes launched at a really good time and have had a higher impact. And I think the impact was also high because of everything that was happening around Bitcoin. Uh, People were already talking about it, and it got amplified further. Um, I think, but there is little data that we have to analyze with current volumes, and they could be high and low in the near future, and the speculation could be higher and lower as well. And what will change it, what will happen towards it, is something we're still kind of figuring out, right? Like, people's interest happens when there is something substantial happening around any of these asset classes. There isn't, I can't even guess what would be that factor be that will move things. Uh, but there are a few things that I think could make runes or things like taproot assets very, very interesting, right? So, like, I think stable coins will bring greater use case. I think 2017, when USDT was sort of launched, it first launched on the only layer on Bitcoin blockchain. It didn't come on Ethereum first. It did not come on Tron first. It came on Bitcoin first. But that layer was problematic. It was slow, not easy to use. The UX was really bad, and a lot of things have changed since then. I think runes would be fairly interesting if stable coins were to launch on it. Um, that said, like a company called Lightstream is launching various world currencies uh, using Lightning and their own technology for transfer using Bitcoin as the base settlement layer, which is super fascinating. If we can do that on Rune somehow, like if USDT or USDC were to launch on any of these Taproot standards, then it'll be pretty cool. And like I discussed before, if you can take that on Lightning, where you can do a 0.0001 cent sort of a transaction, that's when it becomes something valuable for micropayments. And I think that's very interesting. And you can do that both ways, like using Lightning. I can send you BTC, you can send me USDT, or like any of these stable coins. I think that trade in a decentralized manner without using any central party except the issuer of the stable coin would be a good interesting starting point. um, so yeah, like I think that's interesting. I think, like I said, Lightning integration is fairly interesting as well, both for speculative assets. And I think one of the questions somebody asked is like, why Runes is not taking off compared to Solana and ETH meme. We don't have stable coins on Runes to trade against. You have to use centralized companies. And if you were to use a centralized organization to trade a Rune, you're better off using decentralization over Solana or ETH. No matter how much one questions it, it's definitely a much better system than using a random plugin for a USDT client to bring onto Bitcoin, or use a centralized service which is not doing it properly. And plus, we haven't gone through the runes cycle yet. Like, we haven't seen good, bad, and the ugly of the rune side yet. So that's why, like, people are happy. Like, EVMs are set. Like, people know they work. They've been using it since like 2017. We've had the whole stabilization of the Ethereum side of things, and the upgrades happen on it for that purpose. For Bitcoin, this is not the purpose. Nobody wants to use Bitcoin for degenning. Nobody does. Like, we might disagree with me. Like, he wants to. He's like, yeah, I want to. I want to dump my Bitcoin into like trading shit coins, but like majority of the world doesn't really want to do it. But maybe some of it can go into it, but it's very hard because nobody wants to trade Bitcoin for shitcoins. It's not most of the people holding Bitcoin don't want to do that. Like, that's what my sort of analysis, and like the little like 50, 60 people poll that I did said that they're happy to trade ETH for it, but not Bitcoin. And that's the thing. I think for the crypto side of things, it'll be the usual suspects. You need better dexes, you need more centralized exchange support for runes, you need more launch pads to kind of launch interesting things on runes. You need platforms supporting and kind of giving use cases to runes, other platforms integrating runes cross chain with other chains, because why not bring ETH meme coins on BTC and vice versa and to Solana, and building that bridge. I think that's what we will see in the near future, which will lead to more interest. Like, this is the same cycle that happens on any new layer 2, layer 1, layer 3, whatever you want to call them, happens. You have these usual suspect platforms that start building on it, creating like a so-called ecosystem. We don't have much of that on runes, and as it happens, we will see more traction as well. And with regards to freeze, like, it's a free market. Things will be built and used if they can be, and people will continue to either find value or attempt to find value. From a long-term perspective, energy in general that we spend to mine Bitcoin is going to become more efficient. It will become cheaper. So at that point of time, like, it won't really matter. Like, the chain fees will be more valuable. Like, Bitcoin will be more valuable than the energy used. So a lot more people will be able to mine. And I'm talking like a couple of decades in the future, right? So at that point of time, I'm assuming we have to go energy cheaper, because if you if you know the Kardashev's like civilization rule, right? Basically, for humanity to go to civilization 1, which is at, okay, I'm going a bit off into another tangent, but like energy is very important, right? So we have to make cheaper energy over time for humanity in general, not just for Bitcoin. And as energy becomes cheaper, we will see that mining will be cheaper as well. So we'll have more miners into this ecosystem as well. So I think runes will help at that point to kind of keep Bitcoin more, decentralized in a hypothetical situation. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Shash. V, it seems like you have something to say. Would you like to comment?
I got many things to say, but I feel like I want to invite Shash to another call or space or something, because I feel like we have so much to unpack. So one thing I do want to say is that I am quite bearish on Lightning, and we don't have to get into that now, but like just because I believe concatenation on layer 1 Bitcoin is going to happen, and it's inevitable. So it's like a technology that we won't really need in the future, and it's too complex right now, using mesh networks and stuff like that. Whereas I think Bitcoin's tech will be much more advanced in the near future. Also, like coming back to the Ethereum point, I think Ethereum it had the first mover advantage before, and then the first mover advantage actually became a disadvantage as other chains like Solana came out, and they saw the problems that these earlier smart contract chains had, right? So to me, Bitcoin doing this innovation is partially stealing a lot of the thunder away from Ethereum. And as we go forward, we'll have to see how Ethereum repositions itself against Bitcoin and what's happening on there. Yeah.
Thanks, V. Okay, just a quick question from the chat. So someone actually said, how do we address network congestion concerns with Bitcoin runes? Because every time there's a new thing on Bitcoin network, the gas fee actually spikes. So do you guys have any tips for that?
You got to learn how to read the mempool. I know a lot of people overpay for fees because the fees and wallets tend to be standardized as well, or their estimates based on the previous data, which isn't always accurate because there are delays in the chain, right? So learning how to read the mempool really can help you set the right fees, and also time when might be a good time to actually get something through. I think
I don't think that's a fair answer, V. Like nobody's gonna read the mempo. Like, come on, let's be realistic. Can you explain how can the fees be lowered in general for people using standard wallets available on iOS?
Well, you see, that's the thing. If you don't read the mempool, you won't know how much to pay for your transaction to be included in the next block, right? If you pay too low, then there's a chance your transaction might get dropped. If you pay too much, it'll get included in the next block, but you're going to lose out on fees, right? So in that sense, when I look at Bitcoin's fee system, I think it's much better than Ethereum's, which is or Ethereum's older model as well, which was based on an auction model, and it wasn't very effective, right? It was just people bidding against each other to get their TX included in the next block. So is there an easier way to calculate fees? Not at the moment. I think the easiest way to do it is to teach yourself how to read the mempool. And to be fair, like you mentioned as well, like back in the days, we didn't have a lot of like knowledge sources for this, but now I do believe there's a lot of content that simplifies how you can read it. So
I think that the question is something else. The question is, there are majority of the wallets used don't give you an option to choose the fees, right? Like, so what is the issue? How can the Bitcoin network be used so that these wallets in general have a low fees? Like, I don't think this is a question about like how do you get the knowledge of the low fees or high fees. It's just that these wallets, 90% of the wallets, whether you're using your mobile phone or your computer, many of these don't have an option for fees in general.
So my recommendation is to use Xverse Wallet. It is the best wallet on Bitcoin. It not only do they have a section where they show you your ordinals, as well as a system to prevent you from spending your rare sats. They already have rune listings in your wallet, so you can also see runes, as well as you can set your fees yourself, which is great. Yeah. Does that answer
Yeah, I
the
agree.
question?
Yeah, I agree. And I've
Oh,
used it as well along with the Unisat wallet. I like the Xverse one quite a bit. It's a super cool, and
it's
they've
the
done
best.
a lot of work on it as well. Like since when it started, it's come a long way as well. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Shash, happy to chat with you separately as well. I feel like we have a lot to talk about.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so V, from a marketing perspective, how do you see Bitcoin runes influencing user engagement and revenue on GameFi platforms? Like, do you see Uncharted ever integrating runes?
So that's actually a hard question to answer, because we are on Ethereum right now, but we're not. I would say we are not chain. We are chain agnostic, right? We'll build where it makes sense for our users. So I know runes are on Bitcoin, and games on Bitcoin are still capped right now because the tech just hasn't gotten there yet. But there is a ton of innovation going on Bitcoin, as I mentioned, and make no mistake about it, Bitcoin games are coming. And I actually played a couple super basic games on Bitcoin. Someone actually coded a video game into an ordinal via JSON, which was pretty cool. And yeah, the winner got an OMB whitelist or something. That was a year ago. So that was pretty cool. There's also like Liquidium. So the tech isn't there yet, but there are developers trying to do workarounds to launch DeFi applications. So Liquidium is one of them. Full disclosure, I am an angel investor. It's basically the first ordinal lending protocol on Bitcoin, right? So you put up your ordinal as collateral, and it works via PSBT, partially signed Bitcoin transactions. So you open a partially signed transaction, and then the lender, yeah, you guys get it. But yeah, anyway, like coming back to runes, I do imagine that a surprise airdrop to early engagers is a way to reward people. For example, Liquidium is doing runes airdrop for lenders and borrowers. So that's one way to sort of get people to talk about them, as well as pull in liquidity into the dApp, right? So yeah, the surprise airdrop might be something cool to do regardless of what chain you're on, and it gives people more exposure and a reason to be on Bitcoin, and it's an easy way to do it, right? Yeah, so it depends on the team and how open they might be to degenning with the rest of the space. And I would love to see Uncharted explore runes for our players and you reward members. And I'm definitely open to it. I'm open to any opportunity. As projects, we should be looking into any and every way we can reward our holders. And if it makes sense, that includes runes too. So at Uncharted, we're always looking for how to build games that present opportunities for significant upside potential for our players, right? Great projects, I think, just tend to reward their holders over time. So, for example, our most recent game, Gangster Arena 2, it was free to play on testnet, but we actually set aside 1 million greed tokens for testnet players, right? So, and for the first season, we gave away the entire prize pool of 120 ETH. The team kept nothing. So if it makes sense to do something with runes in a fun way that rewards our holders, we're definitely ready to explore it.
Yeah,
Who's
thanks.
going to pay the fees for that though?
Yeah, but the fees, if you're etching during like a low fee period, it can actually be super cheap. Yeah.
All right, thanks, V. I'm sure that many of us are actually looking forward to Uncharted potentially exploring the integration of runes. Like someone said, Bitcoin gaming finally here. Good, was looking out for it. So yeah, you can see that there are a lot of people actually waiting for it. So it'd be quite cool if Uncharted is sort of like, the first mover, you know? Okay. Yeah, let's just read some comments from the chat box. There are some people who say, "Oh, love this panel." I think everyone's loving the dynamics between you guys. Like, you guys really have a lot to share. Yeah, a lot of people are also asking for your socials. So, yeah, and some people say it's good to hear about Bitcoin runes. If I need to explain to someone what runes are, where to find the experts, which are you guys. And yeah, I'm glad that everyone is liking this live stream. And unfortunately, that is all we have for today. Thank you to our panelists, V and Shash, for your incredible depth, and to our audience for your engaging questions. So today we have explored how Bitcoin runes not only enhance the technical capabilities of the Bitcoin blockchain by simplifying token creation, but also bring a fresh cultural dynamic into the ecosystem through their integration with meme culture and broader community engagement. So we've tackled the challenges they face, such as potential network congestion and high transaction fees, and discussed the promising solutions and market applications that they offer. Shash, V, you guys did a great job in explaining what Bitcoin runes are, sharing your opinions about Bitcoin runes in the crypto space, comparing Bitcoin runes to other crypto tokens like on Solana and Ethereum. It's this session is definitely not enough. Maybe we could have a part two. Let us know in the chat box if you guys would like to see this lovely panel once again. And of course, don't forget to participate in our pop quiz. You might be able to walk away with a share of the 100,000 BOME prize pool. And please note that none of this is meant to be financial advice. The topics discussed are all for educational purposes only. And thank you once again to our panelists and to you, our audience, for joining today's insightful discussion about Bitcoin runes. For more information, please visit our Bybit Learn website, and don't forget to connect with all of us on social media. We also have some exciting new projects that are coming up on Bybit and Bybit Web3, so just keep a lookout. Let us know what are some topics that you would like to hear more of, and we'll see you on our next live stream on June 6th. Thank you, and see you soon.